This one time I found myself stuck at a cozy little cafe downtown sitting across from Lisa. Yeah, Lisa, the same Lisa my best friend Jake had been crushing on for, like, forever. And here I was on what was apparently a date? A date that was supposed to be his? I remember the exact moment it hit me, the sinking feeling spreading through my gut, like my stomach was auditioning to be a black hole or something. How do you even mess up a date with your best friend's crush? Like, is there a manual I missed titled How to Accidentally Become the Third Wheel on Your Best Friend's Love Life? Because honestly, it felt like I was starring in one of those awkward indie movies where everything that could possibly go wrong did, just in the most spectacularly embarrassing way. I'd been texting Lisa earlier that day thinking she was free. I mean, the message in the group chat was weirdly vague and I misread it. Or maybe autocorrect had a wicked sense of humor that day because somewhere in my brain the words study night turned into hangout tonight. So naturally, I slid into a casual, wanna grab dinner? Kind of text, all innocent-like, and she said yes. But then Jake, my best friend since those awkward middle school days when we'd try to out-nerd each other on comic book trivia, sent me a message. And that's when the panic set in. He was like, dude, Lisa and I plan to hit that new sushi place tonight. You didn't know? No, Jake, I didn't. That's when my mind went into triple overtime, like a frantic game of mental ping pong. I mean, I wasn't trying to steal his girl. Heck, if I'd known anything about it, I'd have backed off faster than a cat seeing a cucumber. But here I was, already halfway through polite small talk about her weekend plans and the newest Netflix show she was binging. And she looked so genuinely happy, which made my chest tighten for a completely different reason. And so I sat there, practically sweating, asking myself, how the hell did this even happen? The thought kept swirling around like a bad song stuck on repeat in my head. I glanced at my phone, hoping I could somehow rewind time or at least send a text that magically fixed this entire mess. But nope, no luxury of a time machine, just the awkward clink of coffee cups and the sound of my own guilt drowning out the music playing softly in the background. The worst part? Lisa had no idea about the drama unfolding just under her nose. And honestly, neither did I at the time. What a cluster. So yeah, that night, everything felt like walking a tightrope with no safety net, only instead of a net, there was a giant "Do Not Cross" sign flashing in neon letters right above me. Little did I know, this accidental date was just the beginning of something way messier than any of us expected. Jake and I go way back, like practically grew up together. We met in middle school, bonding over our shared obsession with comic books and terrible superhero costumes. If you'd told me then that years later we'd both be crushing on the same girl, I'd have laughed for hours. But yeah, that's how it played out with Lisa. She wasn't just any girl on campus, she was the kind of person you noticed without trying, with this infectious laugh and a way of making even the most boring lectures seem tolerable. And, no surprise, Jake had been smitten for months. Secretly though, to my own surprise, I started liking her too. Not that I had the nerve to say anything. Now, here's where the whole mess gets complicated. Earlier that day, there was this group chat, just our small college clique, including Jake, Lisa, and me buzzing with the usual back and forth. But someone sent out a message about a study night that was, well, kind of vague. Or maybe I just read it wrong. Texting while half focused on a lecture is obviously not a good idea. The note said, study night at the library after class, anyone interested? But somewhere in my brain, that study night morphed into hangout tonight, which, definitely altered the plans. So without double checking, I shot Lisa a quick, hey, wanna grab dinner? The reply was immediate and upbeat, sounds good. And honestly, I didn't think twice about it. I mean, why would Lisa say yes if she had other plans, right? But here's the kicker. The moment Jake slid into my DMs saying, bro, Lisa and I plan to hit that new sushi place tonight, my heart did this weird little flip that wasn't exactly good news. That's when the internal alarm started ringing like the flashing lights of a failing engine. I wasn't trying to steal Lisa or mess things up between me and Jake. Our friendship was solid, or so I thought. Still, the tension was unmistakable, because suddenly I had Lisa right there looking at me like friends catching up after a long week. She was oblivious to the chaos I was internally experiencing, blissfully chatting about her weekend and what classes she was juggling. It was one of those moments where you want to hit pause, explain everything, but can't quite find the right words. And what made it worse was that, deep down, I felt like I was walking a line where one wrong move could break everything, my friendship, her trust, the whole setup. I tried to push down the guilt, convince myself it was an honest mistake. But man, when you sit across from someone who's supposed to be your best friend's date, it's tricky not to notice the awkward looks you start getting from the sidelines. Though at that point, I had no idea if Jake was even aware of what was going on. The weirdest part was knowing neither Lisa nor Jake realized how tangled this little mix-up was about to get. And honestly, neither did I. At least, not until that night unfolded with all its awkward pauses and those tiny moments where what you don't say screams louder than what you do. So yeah, that vague text, my misread brain, and a casual dinner invite snowballed into a situation that felt way bigger than any of us expected. I just hoped I could somehow navigate this without losing Jake, or making Lisa feel like a pawn in some messed up friend versus crush battle. And turns out, that was only the beginning. There was more to Lisa's story too, something I didn't see coming at all, something that would make the whole thing even more complicated. But that, well, that's a story for a bit later. For now, I was stuck in this uncomfortably tight spot, wondering if I could ever get back to just being me and Jake again without everything blowing up. So there we were, Lisa and me, sitting across from each other at this dimly lit little bistro near campus. She was chatting away, smiling like she always did, completely unaware that somewhere behind all that casual conversation, a storm was brewing, mostly in my head. I was trying to focus on what she was saying about her weekend plans, something about a hiking trip with her family, but all I could really think about was how Jake probably thought I'd just crashed his date like a total jerk. At one point, Lisa laughed at something I said. This easy, genuine laugh, and God, it made my chest twist in a way that wasn't just nerves. But then that sinking guilt kicked right back in like clockwork. I kept catching myself hesitating before responding, trying to sound interested but feeling like an imposter playing a role I was never cast for. I wanted to come clean, spill everything, apologize before things got worse, but honestly, every time I opened my mouth, the words got all tangled up in my throat. Instead, I nodding, smiling, all the while feeling like I was juggling these invisible plates labeled Jake's feelings, Lisa's trust, and my own screw-up. Spoiler, I wasn't doing a great job. Meanwhile, back on the home front, Jake was far from chilling. When he found out about the whole dinner invite from some mutual friend, because, surprise, Lisa had apparently mentioned it like it was this casual, innocent thing, he was livid. But here's the twist. Instead of blowing up at me directly, he confronted one of our other friends who then told me about it behind my back. So yeah, the drama was officially in full swing without me even knowing until the whispers started. That confrontation was weird. Not like fight in the parking lot weird, more like this awkward tension that hangs in the air when you know someone's upset but not exactly sure why or how to fix it. I was pacing around my tiny dorm room debating whether to text Jake, call him, or just wait for him to come to me. And honestly, waiting felt like watching a slow-motion disaster in real time. The real kicker? I was stuck in this internal tug-of-war. Part of me wanted to fix everything fast. Apologize, explain the mix-up, lay all the cards on the table. But the other part was terrified of what might come out if I did. What if Jake never forgave me? What if Lisa felt like I'd betrayed both of them? What if I lost them both? Finding a way out of this felt like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube with oven mitts on. Then, out of nowhere, Lisa dropped this bombshell that threw me completely off balance. Somewhere between bites of her pasta, she casually mentioned that she'd been dealing with something personally complicated. Something about a family issue that made her hesitant about dating anyone seriously right now. It was like she was giving me a peek behind the curtain, showing me a side of her that none of us really knew about. That revelation hit me harder than I expected. Suddenly, this whole situation wasn't just about a mixed-up dinner date or who liked who. It was about all these messy human things, insecurities, misunderstandings, and the way life sometimes throws curveballs no matter how much you try to plan. So yeah, there we were, with dinner winding down, me feeling like I was drowning in all this stuff I wasn't equipped to handle, Lisa looking peaceful but hiding her own battles, and Jake somewhere out there, probably stewing in silence. And somehow, in the middle of all this chaos, I realized one thing for sure. There were no easy answers, just a whole lot of questions, and I wasn't sure any of us were ready to face them yet. After that dinner, the silence between me and Jake stretched longer than any awkward pause I'd ever experienced. It wasn't just a quiet room kind of silence, it was the heavy, unspoken, this is going to change everything type of quiet. So, finally, I decided to just bite the bullet and get everything out in the open. We met up at our usual spot on campus, this weathered bench under the big old oak tree where we'd spent countless afternoons talking about everything from comic book conspiracies to absolutely nothing of consequence. I could see the tension knotting his jaw and the way his eyes avoided mine, like he was bracing for some kind of emotional impact. I started with what felt like the clumsiest apology. Man, I totally messed up. I never meant to overlap with you and Lisa. It was a straight-up mix-up. Honestly, I was as surprised as you were. Jake just nodded, no immediate forgiveness or harsh words, just this quiet storm brewing. Then I told him about what Lisa had shared, that she was dealing with her own family stuff, the kind of stuff that made the whole dating scene feel more like a minefield than a stroll in the park. Hearing that seemed to soften something between us, like the problem suddenly had a little more context, a little less blame. Jake finally looked up and said, I guess I never really knew what she was going through. Maybe I got so caught up in the idea of us's that I forgot she's her own person. That hit me in this unexpected way. Some part of me was relieved, but another part was still tangled in the mess of hurt feelings and confusion. Later, the three of us found ourselves in the same room, awkward handshake kind of moment at first, but then the honest conversation started flowing. We talked about the accidental date, the misunderstandings, and the tangled feelings none of us tried to stir up on purpose. Lisa even laughed nervously when she admitted how ridiculous the whole situation must have looked from the outside. We didn't solve everything that day. No grand gestures or sudden epiphanies. Instead, there was this unspoken agreement that what mattered most was being honest, even when it wasn't perfect, even when it was messy. Lisa told us she wasn't ready for anything serious. Jake and I talked about how to keep the friendship alive without stepping on each other's toes, and I realized that sometimes the hardest thing isn't fixing a problem but living with it while things figure themselves out. Looking back, I can say I learned a lot about friendship and communication. Mostly, I learned that sometimes, even if your intentions are pure, you're going to mess up, and that's okay. People aren't puzzles to be solved or stories to be perfectly scripted, they're just people dealing with their own tangled messes. So yeah, I ended up on a date I never meant to be on, with a girl my best friend liked, and turned our little trio into something way more complicated than anyone planned. But the part that sticks with me isn't the date or the drama, it's the way we made it through, mostly intact, with a little more understanding than before. Now, here's the real question. Do you think some mistakes are just too big to come back from? Or are they exactly the kind of mess that teaches us the most? I'm still figuring that out, but I know one thing. Friendship, like life, is rarely clean or simple, and maybe that's okay.